What's up, everyone? This is Colin Davey, the founder of Betscope. I am here to walk through today's NFC Conference Championships and how to extract some value from the market. What we wanted to do is use a little bit of a walkthrough on how to use external data as potential inputs through Betscope. Some of you may be already subscribers to some external third-party projections, or you might use data sources in your betting, and we just kind of want to walk through an example of how you might do that. And to do that, I have brought on my friend Dr. Ed Feng, creator of the Power Rank. Ed, how's it going today? You excited for the conference championships?
I am. I'm very excited. A little bit sad that there's still a little football left, but yes, I'm excited for some football on Sunday.
It's better late than never. You know, the good news is when football ends, there's always plenty of betting value to be extracted from other markets, but we'll save that. March Madness is just going to be just around the corner. But in the meantime, there are still two viable games to go through today. So what I wanted to do here today is walk through some of Ed's predictions that you might see in the Power Rank. Ed has done a write-up of what his numbers and his analysis are saying on what the implied totals, what the, where the value might be in the market, how he has the game projected. We're going to go through that and use that as an example of how you might be able to run that through Betscope and find some additional value in markets you might not have been thinking of, and how just, like one part of the game that you might have projected has implications for other part of the game, and that allows you to expand the range of your betting options. So first thing I wanted to do here, Ed, is just walk through your predictions for this week. So I'm taking a look at your numbers in the Power Rank. This is for members only. If you want some great football analysis and kind of very numbers, and I know all too well about the exact algorithm you're doing it, since we do have the same algorithm used for other things. But this is an example of some of the analysis you can find behind Ed's membership at the Power Rank. So why don't we take a look at a single game? Let's walk through your analysis of how you see the 49ers-Eagles game going this weekend.
Right. I mean, I think the market's pretty spot on in this game. We have Philadelphia minus 2.5. Chris Andrews, I was just looking at Twitter, and Chris Andrews moved to Philadelphia minus 3. He doesn't know how long he's going to be there. Everyone else is at 2.5. My numbers say Philadelphia by 2. They are at home. Pretty much puts these teams on equal footing. You're getting an edge Philadelphia based on home field. I mean, I think both of these teams would be an underdog in the Super Bowl to either of the other teams. I actually have to check that. But yeah, I mean, I think both these teams are good, but probably not my primary Super Bowl contenders. I mean, Philadelphia's had a great season, and Jalen Hurts has been terrific. San Francisco, Brock Purdy has been a real surprise with how he's played, and honestly, I can't really find anything wrong with what he's done over the 7-game stretch. Yeah, I think it should be a close game. I think Philly comes out on top. My number has it at 2.
Yeah, I think it sounds like your numbers are pretty much in line with the markets. Normally, I think we can all beat this drum plenty. Sometimes if the market is not showing value, there is no reason to force action. And so sometimes the best bet is the one you don't make, just because you're looking to get excited and, maybe have some action in the conference championship games. If the spread markets are fair, there's not necessarily a reason to bet into them. I do see you have the total at 48.2. That's a little bit higher than market consensus. We'll get into a little bit about how Betscope sees that. But you do have a note here, and I do appreciate you leaving this note on, not necessarily using totals predictions for cold weather and windy weather games, or weather introduces some volatility. I think one thing that people can get overly in love with is, I have a projection, and even if you know that your projection doesn't price in certain factors like weather, there's just an allure that sometimes you can get when your number is different than the market number and you do want to bet it anyway. So first and foremost, thank you for that disclaimer. It's best practices by far to introduce disclaimers to your own projections. Not a lot of people do that. That being said, if we take a brief look at what the game page is showing here for Betscope, we take a look at what the numbers, they're over-unders at 46.5. That projects out to a little bit of 46.7 once you factor in the distributions. Your numbers are showing a little bit higher than market consensus. Do you think the weather conditions are different enough that you would still advise caution for this Philly-San Francisco game? Or do you think there might still be a little bit of value in the over here?
No, I mean, I don't think I'd lean toward these over here. You factor in the weather conditions. I talked with Dr. Eric Eager on my podcast this week, and he likes both defenses more than both offenses. I think in general that's true. I don't really have an opinion on this. I think if anything, I might lean under if you put a gun to my head. But I'd like to see what Betscope says when that happens.
Yeah, I think so. That's a good idea. So, as a reminder, what we're looking at here at Betscope, this is our odds page for how the game might go. This is a little bit different of an odds screen than you might see at other places. What we've done here, as a reminder, is we have taken all of the book lines that we get from every single market from our data feed, converting those odds feeds into implied distributions, and from the implied distributions, implied totals, and then doing a sharp aggregation of all of them. So what we have here is kind of a market projected box score about how we think every part of the game will go. We do this for a couple reasons. One, it's just a little bit easier to synthesize all of the information at once instead of clicking through multiple screens. And in addition, you might see some colored boxes over here. These are indicative of markets with known weak pricing conditions that we want to target. So our approach for this conference championship game is let's see what prices the markets are giving us, which specific books might be laying bad prices. If we take a look at, say, Christian McCaffrey over here, we see a massive disparity in the prop for rush yards that PointsBet is offering compared to the rest of the market. That might be indicative of a market that we want to target. And as a reminder, you can kind of see all of these markets kind of laid out here over on kind of our default settings. So now that we have an idea of what markets we might want to target, given how our belief will go, by way of example, and I know you have all the disclaimers here, but like, let's say that we do like the power ranks projections and we say it's 48.2. We have issued all of the disclaimers that those projections might be wrong. Like this is not representative. I want to make sure there's all the disclaimers, don't bet numbers blindly. But as a hypothetical, let's say that we do like that. What we can do is pick one market that we think is projected. Our numbers are different than market projections, and we can update our stats. So what this is going to do is, in a world in which that projection is true, the true over should be a little bit higher. In that world, all else being equal, everyone's offensive prop numbers should be a little bit higher as well. Jalen Hurts' touchdown number should be a little bit higher. Brock Purdy's passing number should be a little bit higher. Christian McCaffrey's rush numbers should be a little bit higher. And so what we're doing here is we're changing one number, seeing how that gives a slight bump to literally every other prop on the board, and then we're going to rerun those distributions and then run those distributions against every prop at every single market. And so even though there's maybe a slight difference here, given how some of these markets are weakly priced, we do see a little bit of potential value here. Jalen Hurts over 1.5 passing TDs at FanDuel. That's a number where we'll go back and take a look at their pricing, but they have that priced a little bit, like more towards the under than the rest of the market. That's an indicative of a price or a market that we might want to target, and specifically this bet. And if you do like it, as a reminder, you can just click through immediately and go to that page and get that number down immediately. So we make it as convenient as possible for you to bet that. And so I want to take a look at what these bets are recommending, and maybe Ed, you can give a little bit more disclaimers. So Jalen Hurts over 1.5 passing TDs, Christian McCaffrey over 50.5 rushing yards. We do find a little bit of value in some of these bets, just given the way that they're priced. First and foremost, we'll go back to the disclaimer. Do you have any strong opinions, all else being equal, on how many passing touchdowns Jalen Hurts is going to throw for, and maybe how much Christian McCaffrey is going to run for? As a function of your projected total, all else being equal, this should be higher. But any other disclaimers that you might have on these particular markets?
I mean, not really. I haven't thought too much about props except for interceptions. So I don't really have an opinion on those.
Yeah, and normally I think a lot of people are in that position where, well, if I don't have an opinion on props, I should probably stay away from them. What that misses in the process is there could be some props that are priced so egregiously that It almost doesn't matter what your opinion is. You are there to capitalize on some bad pricing. And so what we can kind of use something like the power ranks projections is we can say, all right, here's an external idea or opinion of how the game will go. Given it that some markets can be so weakly priced, I'm looking for a reason to not bet them as opposed to hunting out reasons to bet them. And if you truly believe that someone has hung, a potentially bad price, you're looking for reasons to not bet them, even if you don't have a strong opinion. Going back to this Christian McCaffrey rushing yards as an example, I think that's worth exploring a little bit. So we did see how everyone else is pricing the market. If you don't have a strong opinion on a particular prop, I think a good starting point is, well, what is the rest of the market thinking about this?
Sure.
Rest of the market, FanDuel, Win, Caesar, DraftKings, they all have it around 56, 57. We can clearly see that PointsBet has it way lower at, 50.5. They do price it a little bit at worse at minus 120. And so the question that I don't think a lot of people ask is, what are those like additional 6 or 7 yards worth? Because there might be a tendency to say like, it's only 6 yards. It's not worth a lot. And yet the stress we place over, like when we get a half point in the spread market, everyone talks about it nonstop. So why don't we do the same thing for props? Do you have any theories on why bettors don't approach props that way by and large?
Well, I mean, the distribution is a little more like, a half point in rushing, a half yard is a lot different than a half point. But when we're talking about 6 yards, it seems like it should matter.
It does. And so I think a reason a lot of people don't do it is because we don't have that ingrained knowledge on what is a yard worth in a rushing prop. And it gets more complicated because a yard and a rushing prop that's priced at over under 56.5 is very different than a whole yard where something that's priced at 10.5. The math gets very complicated and it's difficult to do on the fly. At Betscope, we do have a tool that can help you with that, our distribution calculator, which will tell you the exact value of all of those yards. So let's take this example. Let's say FanDuel is kind of like, all else being equal, our point of reference for what a fairly priced market is. And we'll take a look at a rushing prop at 56.5 minus 114 on both sides. What you can do, and we do have this free distribution calculator here, is we can take a look at some distributions for rushing yards. That are based on some odds distributions. So what we can do here is we can say if a line is 56.5 and using FanDuel's example, minus 114 on both sides, we can pull up what is the implied distribution of that, prop. And so we can see here, we can get some idea of what the full distribution is. And at the table down here, we can see that according to FanDuel's line, 56.5, it's fairly priced exactly like we put in at like plus 100 on each side. The fair equivalent to over 50.5 is minus like 128. So like over under 56.5 for rushing yards is equivalent to over 50.5 minus 128. Going back to the price here, they priced it at minus 120. And if fair value is minus 128 and we can get it at minus 120, that represents value. And so that is as a reminder, this distribution math is the analysis that Betscope is doing under the hood. And that's why we flag this 50.5 minus 120 as an outlier compared to market consensus and is an indicative of a market that you might want to target. Bottom line is PointsBet priced the over too low given this value, and we've deduced that with the distribution-based math that we just ran through. Ed, any thoughts on, like how people can and should approach that? Like that seemed pretty sound to you?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, yeah, that's a good example. Similarly, we can do the same analysis with Jalen Hurts pass touchdowns. I know even if you like the over, the fact that FanDuel has it priced at plus 110 compared to the rest of the market at minus, like closer to the minus side, that's something. If you want to attack the over, Jalen Hurts' over on pass touchdowns might be a way you want to attack it. If you have something completely the opposite, where like, let's say that you think it's going to be a really low scoring game and you just believe that, both people are not up to it, we can put in a hypothetical total of under 40. Like, let's say, like if you have your own numbers, Jalen Hurts' pass touchdown props might be another market to attack because PointsBet did have the under priced a little bit low relative to market consensus. We can see if it's enough to cross the threshold based off of our correlated outcomes. And yeah, we can see that like if you truly believe that it's going to be a really low scoring game, you can just as easily target the under on that because his touchdowns are going to be so much less pricing the under at -115 when everyone else is closer to -130. That's another way that you can extract a little bit of value. And as you can see, if you have strong opinions it's going to be a low-scoring game, the value that Christian McCaffrey points prop or rushing yards does decrease as well compared to if you like the over. So this is a good reminder that, if there are some top line numbers that don't show value for you, there are so many other markets that you can look to extract value that correlate with, even your fair market beliefs. And so utilizing this full range of betting options is a way to really supercharge your betting returns on investment, as long as you're attacking every source of value in the market. And anything else you wanted to say on this particular game before we moved on to the far more interesting Kansas City-Cincinnati game?
Yeah, let's just move on. It's far more interesting.
Absolutely. So we'll pull it up over here just as a point of reference, but let's go to your predictions. Cincinnati, Kansas City, your numbers have Kansas City beating Cincinnati by 3.8, total projected 55.4. There is, unsurprisingly, a huge asterisk with these numbers. I wonder what asterisk I could be talking about. You want to fill me in here?
Patrick Mahomes is a sprained ankle?
Absolutely. So this is a huge asterisk because you and I have been doing projections in every sport forever. Injuries are the most notorious thing to account for on how do you adjust for injuries compared to projections. It's not going to be 100%. How much do you discount injuries in general? And specifically, how much do you discount injuries to incredibly high leverage players? I don't think there's a single more high leverage player than Patrick Mahomes in terms of what he's worth to the overall team and in terms of what he's worth to the overall point spread. How do we begin to account for this? Because I don't know, I've been doing this for a decade at this point. I don't know that I have a good answer to that question.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think you just kind of have to eyeball it, and that's what the markets are doing too. They're trying to figure out based on information, and then trying to figure out how much he's worth. And it's kind of been clear all week that he's going to play, but you can also ask the interesting question: what should the spread be if he's not? So, all kinds of. I mean, I don't have a quantitative answer for it. I think as we're sitting here Friday, he was actually a full participant in practice yesterday, which is pretty good, all things considered, with the injury. So, I'm going to lean closer to my number of almost 4, and I would certainly lean Kansas City at -1. I mean, I definitely lean Kansas City at +2.5, which you could have found on Tuesday, but right. I would still lean Kansas City -1 here.
Yeah, you see a little bit more of that in the line movement over the week as well. I know at some of the sharper books, they're moving more and more towards Kansas City. So for what it's worth, the market feels like it's more and more likely that either he will play or he's going to be closer to full capacity than, a fully injured ankle. That being said, I think your answer of I don't have an answer quantitatively is 1,000% correct, because anytime anyone gives you a quantified answer for injury, I would treat that with an extreme amount of skepticism. So the bottom line is there's no great way to account for injury. It does just take a lot of eyeballing it. And I think this is another case where I know people can get far more in love with their own predictions and their own projections and believing that can beat the market. At some point, there's just something that's not going to be priced into your number, and you have to fight that urge that you see when you might think, oh my God, my numbers show so much value compared to the market. Your numbers are just going to miss a lot of things like this, and that's okay. It's a tool. It's not the end-all, be-all answer, and as long as you approach it that way, that is the right way. That being said, I think if we want to stake out a little bit of a claim that says Mahomes is going to be closer to his full strength and your historical numbers are closer to representative of game time conditions than not, we could at least try to eyeball and kind of hash out a point of view and figure out how we would run this through Betscope. So as a reminder, assuming full strength Mahomes, which is more or less what these numbers are projecting, you have it at Kansas City by 3.8, total of 55.4. So we can go over to our markets page right now. This has Kansas City, still closer to a coin flip. Market has it at -1. It's projects out to -0.8, projection of 48.4, definitely lower. So this market consensus still kind of represents a Mahomes-less game over here. We do have a list of markets that we might want to target. Isaiah Pacheco, there's a pretty big split between his receiving yards. Joe Mixon has a decent sized split on his receiving yards as well. Samaj Kareem, like similar. Tyler Boyd. The list goes on in terms of like these other prop markets that we can be attacking for a point of view. We could always attack the spread markets, but one of the things we see just kind of eyeballing the spread here is that most of these spread numbers are pretty closely priced to one another. We maybe see a little bit of value here around like different pricing discrepancies around FanDuel plus 2.5. But one of the things we're going to want to target ahead of time is markets with known pricing discrepancies. One of the key principles we have here at Betscope is attacking correlated outcomes in weekly price markets is a more surefire way to return like positive EV bets than attacking your beliefs in full hold fairly priced markets. So going back to Ed's example here, again, we'll take the original numbers, Kansas City by 3.8, total of 55.4. Anything you want to slightly downwardly adjust, like using this kind of eyeball, like, we're eyeballing it, so we probably want to discount a little bit. Any discount that you have, like from your rough eyeball that you have in mind?
I mean, I would shift it a little bit towards the Chiefs and a little bit towards the over.
Yeah. So like right now, your full Chiefs numbers would be something like 3.8, according to your numbers. Any adjustment you want to make off of that 3.8? Like,
yeah, let's call it 3.
Yeah.
Or
so let's call it minus 3.0.
You should get some signal with 2.5, right?
Definitely. Like, let's just call it 3.0, but as an illustration, like, all right, like, yeah, this is the way to do it. Like, there is no like surefire way on how to adjust based on an injury. It's kind of like eyeball and okay, where are we at? That is honest to God good enough for most people's purposes. Total of 55.4, similar factor. You want to eyeball it, call it like 52 or something like that. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, 50, 51.
Yeah, split the difference. Yeah, 50. Let's call it 51. And just like, I think it's better to stay on the side of conservative and shift more towards the market consensus, like when you have such a discrepancy like that. So Let's do the same thing. Let's run those top line numbers through. And again, we should get some correlated outcomes where in a world in which those top line numbers are correct, we're going to readjust all of the points props as well, or really all of the props on the board, and then run those updated distributions against all of the pricing numbers and see what recommended bets we have for some of these more weekly priced markets. So we'll give it a minute to run. And then we do have some kind of interesting, potentially conflicting points here. One of the more interesting ones I like here is total points over 42.5. It's actually like, pretty rare that you kind of see value in some of it. It's actually not rare. I'll correct myself. I should say it's rare that people opt towards some of the alternative totals where you're getting a more minus things. Usually people think of alternate spreads and alternate totals as I really like this play, so let me get like a really plus number and take some more risk. If the markets are priced inefficiently, sometimes it is the case that they misprice it on the overside over here. So again, like if you like, 51 as your projected total, using an illustration, we can go back and take a look at what that projects out to and what fair market prices are. So let's go to our total. We're gonna go to projection mode instead to kind of illustrate that you can use both projected and odds to get some of these distributions. So let's punch in our projected total of 51, and we will be able to generate fair market prices for like most of these other like lines as well. So over here, like we see 51 over under 51 projected. You got roughly fair market prices, even odds around 50.5, 51. If we go back to what do we have here? 42.5. A fair market price for this is 42.5. Over that is minus 276. PointsBet is pricing it all the way at minus 210. I can't explain why they're pricing there. Maybe they just have a difference in opinion on, like why that particular number, like they can shade it a little bit more, but that looks like a pricing mistake to me. And as a reminder, like you can just click on that and we'll take you directly to their page where you can take a look at, pick your own totals. We'll go down to over 42 and a half. Sorry, they have it in the slider setup. This is embarrassing. I picked the wrong one, actually, where it's actually pick your own line. So I apologize that. Over 42.5, we would bet it there. These other ones here, Tyler Boyd over 30.5, all else being equal. If you like the over, you probably want to attack that. Jerbora under, there's a little bit, and the Travis Kelce over 7.5 receptions. These are some of these kind of over-based markets that you can target. Any thoughts on how, like, I mean, you can get in some really weird third order and second order effects. If you think Kansas City is going to cover, what's that going to do to Isaiah Pacheco's unders receiving yards? Like,
Right.
I don't know. Do you have any thoughts on what the results are spitting out here? Anything that you agree with? Anything you disagree with? I think the total is pretty straightforward if people are pricing totals in alternate markets wrong. But for some of these props, anything that looks correct, looks incorrect, any questions on what this might be spitting out?
Well, I mean, it's just based on the underlying math that you looked at for lots of NFL games. So, in some sense, if it's profitable, it doesn't have to make too much sense, right?
Yeah, you just have to believe that the distributions are roughly correct. Sometimes you can get into interesting cases where maybe the price is so far off on maybe like an under. Like, let's take Isaiah Pacheco's under like 10.5 receiving yards. If you believe that that is truly mispriced, but you think that the game total says that, well, all else being equal, he's going to go maybe a little bit higher because it's going to be more of an offense game. What do you do when your correlated beliefs like potentially conflict against like a prop that you might be doing? At some point, like, how mispriced does a prop have to be where it's like, you know what, I'm going to take it anyway. Like, let's say that, like, using a hypothetical example, like, let's say that, you thought it was like, okay, I like the over, all else being equal. I like Joe Burrow's pass touchdowns to hit like the over, but someone was pricing it at like, under 1.5 plus 700. You would take the plus 700 no matter what, even though you think he's more likely going to throw some more value, like some more touchdowns. It's all about what price you're getting. And I think the ability to make yourself as price sensitive as possible and knowing how these distributions can help you be as price sensitive as possible will help you spout more market in the value. Did I sum that up roughly according to your understanding as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, so as an illustration, this is just another way where you can kind of use some of these top line beliefs to find value in additional markets you might be thinking of. Even if your top line numbers agree, from your own internal projections with some of the markets, there are still other markets that we can be attacking, and Betscope is set up to help you find those value spots in those additional markets you might not be thinking of. I think that does it for this week's slate. Ed, anything else you wanted to throw out there?
I mean, no, I think go watch some football. Have fun.
Yeah, go watch some football. As a reminder, if you want to subscribe to a lot of these great expert level predictions, take a look at Ed Feng at the Power Rank. We can find you at Twitter at the Power Rank and thepowerrank.com.
Absolutely.
And with that, good luck everyone on this with this weekend on your bets, and we'll see you next time.